I'm Wout, and I'm a web developer and the creator of LiveSvelte. In this video, we're going to take a look at what LiveSvelte is, why you would use it, and how to use it by taking a look at some examples. Also, we're going to talk about a little bit about LiveView and Svelte, and by the end of the video, I hope you're enticed to use LiveSvelte in your own LiveView project. So first of all, we have to say what LiveView is, because if you don't know that, then the rest of the presentation isn't going to make a lot of sense. So LiveView is a technology built in Phoenix, and Phoenix is a web framework that's built on top of Elixir. So this might already be like, what is he talking about? So Elixir is a bit like Python, and so it's just a programming language, or Ruby. Phoenix is a web framework, a bit like Django or Ruby on Rails. And so LiveView is a technology built on top of Phoenix. Nowadays, you also get to see some, you get to see it being grown as a LiveView paradigm. So, for example, JavaScript has a LiveView library now, and I think Rust also has one. But we're just gonna talk in the context about Phoenix. And LiveView, simply said, is a way to render a front end from a backend while still having reactivity, right? So if you have things updating on your front end, they synchronize with your backend, and that's really powerful. The way that it achieves this is by using WebSockets. So you would simply click a button in your front end, an event would be sent through the socket to your backend. The backend looks at the event, does some action, and then updates your front end by sending some HTML back, and the front end knows how to handle this and updates the front end. And it's all being done very transparently, or like very, how to say it, like without having to write any JavaScript at all. And so it's, and we're going to take a look at some examples, so don't worry about that. But simply said, that's what's LiveView. Svelte, on the other hand, is just a front-end technology, just like React or Vue. But the Svelte does things a bit differently. So the way they do it is by compiling down into regular JavaScript. So Svelte is a compiled front-end framework, and this brings some advantages like a really nice developer experience. It's really small because you only compile the things you compile into the things that you only need. So you don't have to import like a full React, not binary, but a full React setup or a full React View setup. So you only use what you need. And it has great support for animations, it has scoped styling. So I really like Svelte. I've been using it for a while now. And LiveView is what's new to me. And I also really like LiveView, and I thought, let's combine the two, because there is definitely a use case for them. So before we go into the example, one last thing: the use case for LiveSvelte is when you have local states inside your LiveView, and it's getting a bit too complex where you can't resort to things like JS hooks or things like alpine.js or HTMX, which are like, those are perfectly valid solutions in most of the cases. But once you get into like a more complex front end, dynamic, things are dynamically changing depending on a lot of factors, and this can be a bit tricky to do with current technologies. So let's take a look at the examples, because that's gonna explain most of the things. So let's define the setup first. So I have a web browser here, and my server is running here, and this is my code. So this is just example number 1, and we're going to look at 8 examples here. So the first example is not even a live view. So you can use LiveSvelte inside dead views. What are dead views? It's just another word for a backend template. Just how you have in Django or Ruby, you have backend templates, and you can just render your HTML, it gets sent to the user, and that's it. The same is available in Phoenix, of course, and this is a way to use LiveSvelte or just regular Svelte inside your template. Note, this is server-side rendered Svelte. So if I click on this, you don't see any flash of unrendered content that you would sometimes get if you don't server-side render your Svelte. So that's also a nice feature of LiveSvelte, is server-side rendered. So the way to define it, you have LiveSvelte.render and you specify the name of your component. And this is your component, so Svelte, it can look like simple HTML, so something else. And then we have a p tag, for example. And this is inside the p tag. And if you refresh, if you save the file, it automatically updates in your development environment. So you have like a hot module reloading or whatever it's called, and that's just working. So in this case, it's not really useful. There's no reason to use LiveSvelte in this case, but it's just an example. So if we go to example number 2, let me open this. This is where things get interesting. So this entire thing is actually in a LiveView rendered page. So this part basically, and we have two components, let's say. So we have our LiveView component, which if we click the button, it increases. And we have our LiveSvelte component, which if we click the button, it increases. But we also have some client-side state, like this one, right? So what is happening here? So the LiveView components and the LiveSvelte components are all encompassed in this thing. And this is the top one, so this is just this part. And what you do is you have a button and with an event increment, and when you click it, Phoenix click, it sends the event. And this is where we catch the event. So we have the previous number plus 1, and we assign it to number, which we assigned originally in the mount. So this is the initialization step. So this can be 5, for example. If you save it, this will be 5. And we then render the number here, and it happens automatically for you. The rendering happens automatically for you. So this is, if you're not familiar with LiveView, this is already really powerful. So you're clicking the button, the message gets sent to the WebSocket. You can see it happening here. The LiveView library takes care of it and renders some HTML for you that gets updated in the front end. Really cool. And we have the same functionality here, like in LiveSvelte. So let's take a look at the Svelte components. So we have the number, which is this one. That's the one we set here. So we define props. And this is just a dictionary, if you're familiar with Python. In Elixir it's called a map, but it's the same as a dictionary. And we set number to number, and we catch it here. And then we can display it here. So just like as you would have it in regular Svelte, if you're familiar with Svelte, because I mean, some people might be watching and they're familiar with LiveView, or some are familiar with Svelte, or some don't have any familiarity. This is how you would do it in Svelte. You just encompass it in this, what to say, like these brackets, and that's just the way it works. And but the interesting part is the way to update it is the same as in the LiveView one. So you would use Phoenix click, increment plus 1. And that's it. So you don't use the regular way of updating states in Svelte, like this way, for example. So this would be the way of doing it in Svelte. If you just have client side, which is this element, without having to define a function in your script tag here, you can just do it inline this way. And yeah, that's it for a very simple example. So you can combine server-side state and client-side state inside your Svelte components. And if you're familiar with LiveView, you know this might sometimes be a problem. Where if you're using Alpine or JS hooks, this sometimes is not a problem. You can just use those. But once things get a bit too complex, then you get into territory where it doesn't feel as good anymore. And we're gonna take a look at more complex examples in a minute, but just this is just the way, this is like the interesting part about LiveSvelte. So, okay, let's finish this example. Let's go to the next one. So the next one is actually the same. The 3, 4, and 5 are the same. So if I click on 3, this is pure Svelte. There's no server-side thing going on with this one. This is pure LiveView. There's no LiveSvelte going on with this one. And this is a hybrid. So this is both using LiveView and using Svelte. So let's take a look at Svelte, the Svelte one first. The code isn't that interesting. If you're familiar with Svelte, this is how you would do it. You have some styling, which is, it's good to say this is scope styling. If you're familiar with scope styling, this means the styling is only applied to these specific elements in your HTML DOM. So the button element, this would only be applied to this one. But if you have a button somewhere else, it wouldn't be applied. And so that's also interesting to say, because maybe you're a fan of scope styling, and then you want to use scope styling and you want to have components that have scope styling, but LiveView doesn't really have a good way of doing scope styling. So Svelte does have it, so if you want to use it, you can. And it is a dead view, so we don't have any LiveView reactivity. So the way it's defined is, again, you have the Svelte2 component name, and then you have props. The number is set to 10. So if I change this to 5, for example, and I refresh, if I refresh, okay, then it sets it to 5. Okay, what does the component do? I didn't even talk about that, so let's see. It increments and decrements the number, and if you want to increment it by another amount, you can set that amount, right? And it's all reactive, so if I change this, this is being changed, and this is being changed. It's a very basic example, but we're gonna see where it gets interesting. So you can, if you just want to do this in LiveView, let me close this. In LiveView, let me also close this. So you can do this. Oh, I opened the wrong one. Spoiler. So if you want to do this in LiveView, you can do it. You can just do it. You don't need Svelte for this. So it has the same functionality as the previous one, right? And again, if you're not familiar with LiveView, this is really cool. You didn't write any JavaScript, but you still get this reactivity. And it is synchronized with the server. So, I mean, this is a simple example, but if you, let's say you have a database and you have some fields, or you have some rows in your database and you delete a row, you want to see it updating your front end, but it also needs to update in your back end. And usually what you would do is you would use Ajax and you would send a request, or if you have GraphQL or something like that, you would send a request, and then you need to make sure that it updates correctly and everything. In this way, it's just declarative. And so you define what it should look like. You define your amount, your number, your amount here, and you just use the messages that are being passed to update things in the backend or not. Right, so it's a really powerful ID. Just LiveView by itself is really powerful. So we have a couple of events. We have subtract, add, update amount. They're very straightforward, and yeah, it just works. So it's great until it is not. Let's say we want to only have the number 10 being updated in the backend, but we don't want the amount to be updated in the backend. We just want the amount to be local. And so this one we want to be local in the browser, but this number we want to make sure that it's being synchronized with the backend. And if you want to do that, you can do it with JS hooks probably and with Alpine, but again, if you get into more complex scenarios, this might not be that trivial. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So our LiveView is very, very simple. We only have the set number in this case, because we don't want to keep the amount. So we only define the number, and we pass it as a prop, like this. Yeah, so that's it for the LiveView actually. And then for the Svelte components, we have Phoenix click, and we set the number, but the amount is local. We just bind it to the value. So that's what you do here, and it just works. So it's I mean, if you compare this code, and this with like this code, it's not a lot different. It's not a lot more complicated, but you get this powerful client-side state that you can then use, and that's where LiveSvelte really shines. So let's take a look at a more complex example. So let's go to example number 6, and let's go to the LiveView first. So in this example, we have a list of logs that you want to show to the user somehow, and we can define how many you want to show, like this, and we can add some stuff to it, like this, and this is just the ID, and this is the body, but we use just the date as the body in our example. But if you don't want to use the date, you can use something else. That's not really the point. And we have this animation where it slides down, and we have also a button to just completely not show the element, right? So we have the only synchronized state is really the elements of the logging list that we show. All the other stuff is client-side. So even if you look at the code, we see we just have a LiveSvelte component, we don't have anything else. And we have the items that are being passed. And then we have a bunch of code to add to the list of logs and to set the date and that kind of stuff. And to do something every second. So every second we add the logging statement. And in the Svelte component, this is what's being done. So let's take a look at the code here. So first of all, I want to show you this. So this is this. So if we don't want to show, or we do want to show, depending on the show items, and the show items are being set here. Show items check bind, and that's the way that works. Then for the amount we want to show, that's this one, right? So it's already a lot. So let's do like this. And that's this one, also local state. We just set the I, it's not a great variable name, but it will work. And we just show how many we want to show, and we use this I here. So we just slice, and we just take only the last part of the logging elements, basically. And the animations are being done this way. So Svelte has great animation support. So you can include the slide animation, which is basically the one that's going on here, and then the fly animation, which is basically the one that's going on here. So it sort of flies in from the left side of the screen. And that's this one from the left side. And we also do fly animation here and the slide animation here. And then to add the item, we don't use the Phoenix click. If you remember, we used to do this. In example number 5, we used to do this, Phoenix click. You can also use push event, which is something that's automatically added to your Svelte file if you want to use it or not. And you can call it with a message name, and you can provide some value, in this case the body. And this works, so you don't use Phoenix click, but you just do it sort of programmatically. And to reiterate on the point, we don't set any Svelte state in this for the items, at least. So what you would usually do in Svelte is you would just set the item, you would just add the item to the list, and then it would update, or you would have to reassign the list to the items actually. But then it would update in the front end, and that's it. But we don't do that anywhere here. We just send the message, and that's it. And then it gets sent over the WebSocket. LiveView takes care of it and sends you back the correct list of items that need to be displayed, and the rest happens automatically. So it's all just being done very declaratively, where you just send that's the only thing that's really a bit programmatically. You send the event, but the rest takes care of itself, which is really nice. I'm a big fan of like declarative code and all that kind of stuff. So LiveView is very declarative, Svelte is very declarative. It's really nice. So that's an example of combining complex local state with server-side state. And to do this without LiveSvelte is probably possible, but it wouldn't be as nice as it is here, or at least I haven't seen it. So please show me how it's done if there is a better way of doing this, but I don't think there is a better way, but I'm happy to be proven wrong. Okay, so let's go to the next example. So for this one, I'm gonna just zoom in or show the full screen. And this is sort of a breaking news event that you would see on television. So we have a couple of news events here, defined here, 5 news events, and at the bottom of the screen they're being displayed so people can always have input when they're watching the news. And so you can remove them like this, and they're being synchronized with the server. So let's imagine you're a news agency and you have a couple of editors and they want to show something else on the screen, and so they all are tuned in into this dashboard and they can add news items to the screen, and it would automatically show up for other people also. And so it's not, you don't have to refresh the page. Other people would see, okay, someone added this, and then it would show up on your breaking news bar. And so, I mean, this part is easy to do if you're just using LiveView, but this part would not be easy to do if you're just using LiveView. This marquee element, it's an npm package that I'm importing, and it would actually not be that easy to program it yourself. It's quite complex in its functionality, even though it just moves stuff from the left to the right, or from the right to the left. You can choose the direction. Also, I wanted to say it has a faster and slower button, so if I click this a couple of times, you can see it moves way faster. And this is locally. No reason why it wouldn't be server-side if you wanted to, but just as in the case of the example, we're using this as a local state. And yeah, that's what the element does. But let's take a look at the code. So let's go to number 7. Let's take a look at the LiveView first. So we have let me refresh. We have some initial news items here. We have the LiveSvelte render, breaking news, which is the item, which is a Svelte component we're using, and then we pass the props, which is the news items, and then we have a remove and an add event to add and remove, and we set the initial news items here. Very simple. In the Svelte side, not so simple. So we have this marquee element, and we have to do quite a lot of logic to make it work, to initialize the marquee elements, to add items to it, and so forth. And it's not so not so trivial to make this work. But it is, I think this is the easiest way of doing it. So if you wanted to do this again, if you wanted to do this in Alpine or in JSHooks, I wish you the best of luck. It's not so easy. It might be possible, but I think this is probably one of the better solutions to do it. And yeah, again, we use the push event to add and remove. I'm not gonna go over that too much. And then we have our slide and fly animation, which I'm not so sure about where we're using it. I guess for this we're using a fly animation also. But where's the slide? Okay, so if we add something, see it sort of flies in. It's not exactly a slide, but when we're removing it, it slides. Just to show you can have different animations for different kind of interactions. Adding and removing has a different animation. So this is very easy to do in Svelte. So this is, if you're familiar with Svelte, this is nothing new. But if you're not, you might be like, wow, that's pretty cool. So yeah, that's basically it for this example. So again, very complex local state, but not so complex code in Svelte. although it's a bit, but not so much. And then for the final example, I'm gonna have to open 2 tabs. So we have a chat application. So let's say we have user Alice, we have a user Bob, classic names. So we have a chat application, and we can say hi Bob. It shows up at the other side. We can say hi Alice. Very simple, but still a bit complex because we have some local state. So the animations are being shown. We have this number here if you didn't see it. So depending on how many characters I enter, it shows you that number. Not sure why you would have this in a chat application, but maybe if you're making a Twitter clone, this could be useful. And so we have some local state that we don't want to show, but we do have some server-side state, and it needs to be synchronized. So I'm not going to go too deep into how it's being done, how the synchronization is being done on the live view part, but it's not super complicated. So we just have a topic that we subscribe to, and then we listen to topic events here. And if you want to learn more about this, so we have also a broadcast event every time there's a message being sent. If you want to learn more about this, go into the Phoenix documentation and read about PubSub, or also look into some chat examples in LiveView. They also have some good examples of how to use this. The more interesting part is it's a hybrid. So if the name is not being set, so let's go back to the beginning. So if the name is not being set here, then we show this form. If it is being set, we show this form. So very declarative, not like, oh, now transition to this page. No, just show it in case this is the case, otherwise show this. Very easy to understand. So if I log in as Alice, then it would show this part, and if I'm not logged in, it would show this part. This part, right? And so the name is being set, we call set name, and we set the name here, name, and originally the name is set to nil, a bit like none in Python. And so yeah, very, very easy to understand. And the chat application itself, the chat component in Svelte itself, also not so complex. So we have a send message event, push event, submit message. We go to the bottom here. So being done in exactly the same way. And we have some logic related to where we want to fly in from. So let's say, let me log in as my own name, and I say hi, and I say hi back. Then you see it's being flown in from the right or the left. So in case I'm typing it, being flown in from the right. In case someone else is typing it, it's being flown in from the left on this side. And it also shows a different color and things like that. And so that's being defined here. So if it's me, then just do it from the right, otherwise do it from the left. It just reverses the direction. And that's pretty much it. One final thing I want to say, the after update is every time the Svelte component updates, perform a certain action. In this case, we need this because let's say you do a lot of messages, you want to automatically scroll to the bottom, and you don't want to be stuck in the same scrolling position. You want to go to the bottom. So that's what that is doing basically. So if you're in pure live view and you're making a chat application, you would also need to do this, and you would need to call JavaScript to achieve this. There's no way to do it in pure live view because this is local state. Not that it's complex, but it's just like this extra small thing. Okay, we're already in a JavaScript environment. We can just easily do it here, right? You don't need to do it anywhere else. I said that was the final thing, but maybe this could be the final thing. Character count here. If you're not familiar with this means it's a computed variable. So depending on this, if this changes, this is being updated automatically. So you don't need to re-poll every time something happens. You just display it. And so this updates automatically, and you display it here, and that's that character count here. So if I enter stuff here, this number goes up, and that's it. That's really all that I wanted to show. LiveSvelte allows you to do this really complex local state with server-side state while having end-to-end reactivity. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what you see, if you have questions, feel free to leave a comment or contact me in any way. I'm sure you can find me. And yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.